Hi, everybody. I'm Alice K. Ruckelhaus from SufferingWell, and today we are going to talk about the fruit of the Nativity. Okay, so the Nativity is the story of Christmas, and we all know that story. So I want to focus just on what has to do with the fruit of the Nativity. And again, there are lots of different versions of fruits, so there may be something other than this, but I'm just going through one particular version of the fruits. Maybe we'll do another version a different time, but for now, we're going to stick with this. So we talked about this a little bit in a past video. We talked about disattachment. Okay, now I've had a few people ask me, why don't you just call it detachment? And I have heard some people call it detachment, but the reason that I'm calling it disattachment, and lots of other people call it that too, I'm not making up the word or anything, but to me, detachment sounds like something that's already accomplished. And it sounds like kind of a haughty mood, not caring. It doesn't sound very positive. Whereas disattachment sounds more to me, and again, I'm not going by a dictionary definition, I'm just going by how it sounds to me. It sounds more to me like a process, which is what we are talking about. We're talking about a process for a purpose, not to be snobby or to seem like you don't care, but it's more of a sacrifice. So why would disattachment be the fruit of the Nativity? It seems like, oh, the Nativity should be all, oh, angels singing and shepherds coming and all that stuff. And it is. And as a Protestant, that was pretty much how I thought of it. It wasn't that it was shallow or anything. It was very, very deep, but it was more like something that we think of at Christmas, and it's all joyful and everything. When you meditate on the Nativity twice a week, which if you do the Rosary every day and you follow the schedule for the mysteries, you think about the Nativity twice a week, and you think of it at other times of years, it just kind of starts lending itself to other things, and you start seeing it a lot deeper, obviously, because you're thinking about it so much, but also because you're thinking about other aspects of it. So the disattachment aspect of Nativity is that it actually goes two ways. Okay, it goes with Jesus and it goes with us, and they're opposite. So Jesus detached himself from heaven. Okay, it wasn't that he didn't care about heaven anymore or anything. He sacrificed what he really cared about. He's God, and he gave up a lot of what it means to be God in order to be man. He was still God. He was 100% God, 100% man. But he gave up a lot of his rights as God in order to be man. And like I mentioned in a previous video, he didn't just come here as man, fully formed. He came as an embryo who turned into a fetus, who turned into a helpless little baby. So he detached himself from a lot of what he knew and who he was in a way. I don't want to really say he detached himself from who he was, because he was still 100% God, but he gave up a lot. St. Paul in Philippians 2 says that he did not regard equality with God a thing to be grasped, but emptied himself and became like us. And so the key to that, I think, is, why did he do it? Was it just because he wanted an adventure? He wanted to see what it was like to be one of his creations? No, it was because he loved us so much that he was willing to be one of us. You know, oftentimes, like in romance stories and stuff, one person might have something really big to offer the other person. They don't give that up to go be with the other person in their current situation. They bring the person they love into the situation with them where they have all this wonderful whatever. But Jesus, he gave all that up in order to be one of us, in order to experience that with us. Now, he's also going to bring us to be with him. That's what's going to happen eventually. And that's why we have to have the other side of disattachment. So Jesus disattached, he detached himself from heaven to become man. We as people have to disattach ourselves from the world in order to become more fit for heaven, I guess you would say. So why do we do that? For the same reason that Jesus disattached himself from heaven, because we love him, because we love God. And we often start out not really feeling that kind of love that makes us want to disattach ourselves from earthly things. But there's two things you can do. First of all, you can pray and ask God to help you love him more. If you already love him, if you know the value of being a Christian, then there's a part of you that wants to love him more than anything else. So ask him to help you with that. The Holy Spirit will help you with that. And that's something that we grow in all throughout our lives. We come to love him more and more and more if that's the direction that we are taking ourselves in, if that's the direction that we've asked the Holy Spirit to take us in. It doesn't just happen automatically. Another thing that you can do is get to know him. You know, how can you love somebody and how can you grow in that love for them if you don't spend time with them? You want to spend a lot of time with God, and you want to spend time with other people who love him, who will influence you to love him more, who will help you to know him more, who you can get to know better with him. In fact, as you spend more time with friends who love God and you grow in your love for God, you're going to form closer friendships with those people. I've seen this used for marriage, but it's also true for other friendships too. You have a triangle. Okay, so you have God at the very top, and you have the husband over here on one side, the wife over here on the other. As they grow closer and closer to God, they come up the sides of the triangle and they become closer and closer to each other. That's true of any of your friendships. Okay, as you grow closer and closer to God, you grow closer and closer to each other. And those intimate friendships are so valuable because they can influence you to love God, to do good. They can encourage you when you're down. They can help you through suffering. And through those friendships, we learn to attach ourselves more to God and disattach ourselves from the earth, from the world. Another way that you can disattach yourself from the world, and I think this is a really important way, is to begin to sacrifice worldly things. Okay, so what does that mean? You can do without something, okay, like maybe a meal. You skip a meal and you do it for your love of God. You do it because you want to become more attached to him and less attached to the things that feed your body. You do want to take care of your body. I'm not suggesting that you not take care of your body, but I'm just saying those things help you to be more spiritually aware and more acute in your spiritual understanding. Giving up things that you don't need, maybe things that you like to do, or material possessions, giving those things up. Giving up, maybe, I don't know, maybe you play tennis every week or something like that. Giving up one day of tennis. Although if that's, building a friendship and everything, you might not want to consider doing that. But maybe your friend would also like to give up tennis for that day and just pray together. Sacrificing other things. Sometimes sacrifice is by doing something, not just giving something up. So giving to people who are in need or helping someone who's in need. Okay, so I think it's kind of obvious what the questions are going to be here, but let's just go through them anyway. So one question that you might consider, and again, don't do all of these at once. In fact, some of these questions you are going to want to think about over and over and over, because you're going to grow in the answers to that. I think more in this particular mystery than in any of the others. But first of all, think about Jesus coming down as a baby, giving up a lot of what he had as God. Think about what those different things are, and think about what that cost him. So that's one thing. Another thing is to think about how he showed his love for you by doing that. And thank him for that. Think of ways that you can thank him for that. Okay, another question is, how much do you love God, and how much do you want to love him? Do you want to love him more? Think about those ways that I just told you about that you can build your love for him, and start thinking about how exactly you can do that. How can you make friendships with people who love God and want to serve him? How can you find those people if they aren't already in your life? What are some things that you can give up, that you can start giving up in order to be more heavenly minded, more fit for heaven? You don't want to just arrive in heaven one day and it's like, wow, this is completely foreign to me. You want to be familiar with it. You want to be like, oh, this is where I've been longing for. This is what I've wanted all this time. And I've worked so hard to become more and more like that with the Holy Spirit's help. This is not something we can do by ourselves. And really, I believe it's a lot easier to do it with other people if you can find people who have those same values. And if you can't, pray about it. Ask God to show you and to bring you into contact with some of those people. Lately, God's been bringing me into contact with some of those wonderful, wonderful people who have that mind of wanting to love God more and to be more and more like Christ. And that has benefited me so much. A lot of them are in SufferingWell from our class. And those friendships, I think, we'll probably be friends for the rest of our lives. And even though I'm like a teacher in those classes, I learned so much from them and I grow. That's those kinds of relationships, give and take, give to each other. They receive from each other. There's just that ongoing kind of friendship. So think about how you can apply that attachment, that disattachment and attaching yourself to heaven. And you're probably wondering, why on earth did she choose the Golden Gate Bridge as her background for today? Well, there's a reason, besides the fact that I was born in San Francisco and I love the Golden Gate Bridge, but because Jesus was a bridge to us. He was a bridge between God the Father and us. And that came through his disattaching from heaven and attaching to earth and becoming a man. So I just thought that that was appropriate. How can you be a bridge to others, connecting them to God? All right, I love you all. I hope that gave you a lot to think about, and write down some of the things that you come up with that help you to apply this whole idea of disattachment, or some of the things that you even think about Jesus because of that. Let's encourage one another to love and good works, okay? I love you all. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.